How would you feel if someone said, "Hello, I am God"? Throughout history, lots of people have claimed to be a god. But they lived in cultures that believed in lots of gods. And although these gods were more powerful than humans, they had limits. So, for example, when the Roman emperor claimed to be a god, it was not a big deal. But when Jesus of Nazareth claimed to be God, things were quite different. Because Jesus didn't say he was just one of many gods. His claim was much, much bigger than that. He had the audacity to identify himself as the one true God of the universe. You see, Jesus was a Jew, and the Jewish conception of God was absolutely unique, unlike that of any other culture. Jews firmly believed there is only one God, and He alone is the perfect, all-powerful, all-knowing, uncreated ruler of all things. He is without beginning or end, and He alone created and sustains the entire universe. He is without limits, and He has no competition. So, when Jesus claimed all of this for Himself, it's no surprise that He ignited a firestorm of opposition. No one had ever done this before. In fact, for the Jews, the very idea of God taking the form of a man simply did not exist. This concept is found nowhere in all of ancient Jewish literature. By claiming to be the God of the universe, Jesus created an identity crisis. Each of us must decide for ourselves, who was Jesus? Because if He's not God, how can we possibly explain His unprecedented claim? He certainly wasn't crazy, or joking, or lying. Let's consider 5 other explanations. First, maybe Jesus was misunderstood. Perhaps He never really claimed to be God. But the historical evidence says otherwise. Centuries before Jesus, God revealed Himself to Abraham as the great I Am. So when Jesus said before Abraham was, "I am," His Jewish audience knew full well that He was claiming to be equal to God. That's why they picked up stones to kill Him. And when Jesus identified Himself as the Son of Man, mentioned in Daniel's prophecy, the Jewish High Court was well aware that He was claiming to be the pre-existent ruler and judge of the universe. As a result, they unanimously condemned Him to death. No, Jesus wasn't misunderstood. To the Jews, His claim to be God was unmistakable. But what about this? Maybe Jesus was a legend. In the first few centuries after the real Jesus lived, His followers invented the idea that Jesus was God. Is this valid? Was belief in the deity of Jesus added centuries later? Or did the very first Christians believe that Jesus was God? Again, the historical evidence speaks loud and clear. The earliest Christian writers made clear reference to Jesus who is our God, Jesus who is both God and man, Jesus who is not a mere man but was God. So the idea that Jesus of Nazareth is God was not invented after the Christian movement began, not at all. Christians always believed it from the very start. So this explanation fails. But another way to try to make sense of Jesus' claim to be God is He was a clever political strategist. He falsely claimed to be God in the hope of focusing Jewish resistance against their Roman oppressors. However, in Jewish culture, claiming equality with God was not a good idea. In fact, it was a crime punishable by death. Jesus made it clear that He was not a political revolutionary, and the Roman government itself officially declared Jesus not guilty of inciting rebellion. So, This explanation doesn't work either. But is it plausible that the historical Jesus never even existed? No. In addition to the eyewitness testimony of the 4 earliest biographers, multiple Greek, Roman, and Jewish historians document the existence of Jesus, who is called Christ. In fact, there's as much documentary evidence for the existence of Jesus as there is for Julius Caesar. That's why the vast majority of New Testament scholars affirm that Jesus was an actual living, breathing, historical figure. For those who examine the evidence objectively, all of these explanations fall short. But for the open-minded, there's at least one other option to consider. Perhaps Jesus was who he claimed to be. Unlike the other options, this explanation fits perfectly with the historical data. But it does have one major problem. It's not safe. Because if Jesus actually is God in human flesh, then ultimately your life is not your own, and true life can only be found in Him.